Thanks, Kyungyan, for this short introduction. So yes, I'm associate professor in environmental science at Center for Environmental and Climate Science at Lund University in Sweden, and I'm happy to present some of my work, some of my research work, some published and some of it is unpublished. So I would like to start with a small disclaimer that please maintain confidentiality, especially at the end of the presentation. The ideas are unpublished. So my aim of this presentation is to introduce my research on upcycling so far. I'm not a designer, and the work that I have seen so far in the presentations is amazing. It's practical. But in my case, I look at upcycling from sustainability point of view. So I work a little bit on higher level, I would say bird's eye view, and the bird's eye view is the sustainability perspective of upcycling activities. I'm also going to one of my aim is to present some research that I have planned for future. And my aim to introduce to this research is to find collaborating partners, either they are designers, practitioners, researchers, and so on. And also to inspire and aspire us to discuss and share ideas. And this platform that Kyungyan has established is an amazing platform to do that. So I'm very happy to be here and present my work. So yes, as Kyungyan has briefly introduced, so that we used to work at Nottingham Trent University back in 2017. I was a postdoc there, and so my initiation into the upcycling research was actually done by Kyungyan. So thank you for that. And looking back, and the research that I've done in the last 5 years and last 8 years, 10 years overall, can be seen as under the umbrella of sustainable production and consumption. There are some dominant research themes that I can identify. In the last 5 years, I think upcycling theme is coming quite a bit, and then circular economy, sharing economy, resource recovery, sustainable business, systems thinking, life cycle assessment, and unintended consequences of improvement actions in the society. And I have worked with both qualitative and quantitative methods. So yeah. And in the last 10, 12 years of my research, I have published 35 publications. And I can see that 9 of those publications are on the topic of upcycling, journal articles, book chapters, and so on. And in my research output, some of the transitions that I have gone through, for example, in 2018 and 2021, are because of when I switched to new fields. For instance, right now I'm working on bioenergy, but using the similar tools that I have been using in my research so far. So, all right, and of course, this all the research activities that I have been doing was not possible with the wonderful colleagues like Kyungyan and others. So this is my research network that I worked so far. It's more than 40 researchers and number of students and hundreds of interviewees that I have come across in different research works that I've been doing so far. So, I'm not going to present whatever I have done on the topic of upcycling. So I have, keeping in view the time that I have selected only 3 major works that I think are relevant for this space here. So one of the work is the work that I've done with Kyungyan Sung, is upcycling challenges and success factors. And based on this work, we have published one of the first journal articles in resource conservation and recycling, and actually one of the first journal articles in general on upcycling. I think in this journal, for example. What we did in this research work was that we looked at different challenges and success factors to different actors in the supply chain of upcycling textile and wood products, and and these challenges and success factors were linked to different actors in the value chain, starting from from the material suppliers to upcycling designers, retailers, and consumers, and so on, and the other outer actors that are directly were affecting their activities, like public authorities and research networks and industries such as. So, so the success factors and the challenges were spread across these stakeholders. So one of the rationale behind this work by bringing these different challenges together was that individual actors were very much aware of their individual challenges and probably the challenges of the immediate stakeholder in the value chain, but they were not. But the success factors to their challenges were not always in their immediate vicinity. They were not linked to their activities, and they were further down in the value chain or further up in the value chain. So the idea was to look at these challenges and success factor and try to make some cause and effect linkages. So what we did was we bring together all the challenges and success factors and try to identify different cause and effect relationships between them to make them into a diagram called causal loop diagrams. I will quickly introduce them to you, what these are. So these are basically a diagram that shows when something increases, how the other variable decreases, and so on, and what kind of feedback mechanisms are there in those variables. So, so we identified different causes of some variable. For example, in this figure A, it's the variable consumer demand for upcycled products. So we identified what causes consumer demand for upcycled products, various variables that we identified in the interviews. And same we did for the same factor. What are the effects of this? What happens when there is a consumer demand for upcycled products? And we did this for a number of variables. For example, here it shows sales of upcycled products. What are the causes of this and what happens after that? And so on. And we identified these challenges and success factors and their interrelationships and various the feedback loop mechanisms in these variables. These different color space shows basically, for example, this first one is material suppliers. So these are the red and the green variables are the challenges and the success factors respectively. And then these relate to material supplier, these relates to upcycling designers, retailers, and consumers, and so on. And we can see that they are all related to each other from a systems perspective. And then once we did this, we also did an exercise to identify major feedback loops. So I'm not going to go into details of this. Basically, it was to identify, okay, if we want to increase the consumer demand for upcycled products, which are the key variables that, of course, relate to throughout the supply chain needs to be taken care of, and who can act where and how, and what kind of resources are needed, and so on, and how they can be supplied, for example, through public authorities and so on. As in the previous presentation, it was mentioned that, to make it sexy, we also came out in our feedback loops that factor was also one of the important factors. So the key mechanisms and interventions that we identified in this work was to increase the consumer demand for upcycled products and effective retail marketing, as identified in the previous presentation as well, and also provision of critical resources for makers and designers. For example, raw materials and skills and expertise. Need for collaboration across value chain. There were some ideas of how we can create a collective where people can share about what kind of resources they have and how they can be shared, and so on. So this was the first work that we did. We tried to look at the challenges and success factors from a systems perspective and how they can be addressed. Now, moving on. So the first work that we did, it was more mainstream designers, upcycle designers, and retailers, and so on. So in the second work, it was more making or bridging upcycling with collaborative production. This work looked into the revival of presumption in the Western countries, where cities are supporting different repair cafes, DIY places, upcycling, and maker spaces. So those of you who don't know what this term is, presumption in contrast to consumption is defined by a consumption system where consumers are not only the consumer of the product, they're also the producers of the product. So they produce as well as they consume, which is quite contrary to the mainstream industrial production and consumption systems. So I explored some repair cafes and DIY spaces in context to how they contribute to upcycling activities, but not by experts, designers, or retailers, but citizens, like people in everyday life. So I looked actually at bike repair cafes in few countries, and my main research question was, what are the social, economic, and environmental impacts of these upcycling activities in these spaces? We had 5 case studies here, 2 case studies in Sweden, 2 in Spain, and 1 in Switzerland. So one that I was very close to was a bike repair shop in Malmö in Sweden. I spent actually 10 days there doing the observational analysis of how users use this space, because this was a municipality funded space where everybody can come and do different things, including repairing bikes. And they had so many discarded bikes that were given to them. So people were just mining, whatever they needed to repair their bike. So in this picture, this is me in the gray T-shirt with one of the main volunteers at the repair bike repair shop. And actually, the bike that is in front, I made it from scratch. I mean, nothing was one piece. It's just the frame, and then I collected everything from the waste, and I created one bike there in 10 days, while of course doing my research work as well. So one of the key outcomes of this research activity was that people come to these user or consumer run spaces not only to repair their bike, but also to attend, for example, social events. People like to get together with each other in these spaces, share ideas, other than, of course, bike repair ideas. Sustainability in general, for example, was one of the themes in these spaces. So this space was, of course, serving as a regular, servicing of bicycles or repairing them, collecting, spare parts from discards, and helping, even learn the skill of fixing bicycle. But it was beyond that. People were able to save quite a lot of money, according to them, identified in the survey, and And there were other social benefits, as I said. People used to mingle a lot, and uh, so in this work, I identified several social, economic, and environmental benefits of repair in context to upcycling products and from waste discards. So and then this work was published in a conference article back in 2019. Uh, yeah. So you can have a look if you uh, want to get some creative ideas how to analyze, explore and analyze social, economic, and environmental consequences of upcycling. So now, finally, the third work that is a bit ongoing and bit published already is actually to come up with a framework to evaluate the sustainability potential of upcycling. So, in the work at this repair cafe in Malmo, for example, what I identified was that collaborative production, meaning product repair and upcycling in these spaces, definitely leads to circular economy. It leads to multiple benefits, social and economic benefits for the users of these spaces. But I also identified that there were other consumption behavioral um, um, aspects that are created in these spaces, and that nobody was discussing. Uh, so one of the so this is work in progress. So one of the aspects of consumption and behavioral dynamics was the time budget, because users were spending a lot of time there, a lot of their free time. And in the literature, in household economics, free time leads to environmental impacts. And if the free time is used in a certain way, one can reduce or increase their overall consumption and environmental impacts, for example. So I was interested in exploring two aspects of this. One is time use rebound and income use rebound, because users are also getting economically benefited from these activities, and how it relates to their overall consumption pattern. So that was the aspect, for example, that uh, I was interested in exploring. I already, in the preliminary research work, I already identified that people, users of the bike kitchen, they were coming quite frequently, uh, and, and they were spending quite a lot of time. For example, here it says about 3 hours. More than 50% of the people were spending uh, 3 hours, and 80% of the people, whenever they have visited the space, they had spent between 1 to 3 hours of their time. And there were some odd people who were spending 5 hours, 12 hours, and so on. I think they were the ones who were working there, perhaps. So yeah, so one of the first thing that I would like to explore in my future research is the time use rebounds, like how the time use uh, in these spaces affects the overall consumption pattern of someone, and positive or negative. I don't know yet. Intuitively, it seems like it's positive. And what I will be looking at this is that how upcycling activity avoid or replace another consumption activity, and what is the net rebound effect of that. So that's the framework that I'll be using to evaluate the overall impact of upcycling activity from a consumption point of view. Uh, and looking at the impact and time use profile of a typical upcycling activity, I can see if certain activities use more time and have less impacts. So, for example, if a typical upcycling activity is in this quadrant, it's definitely very good for the environment. And same goes for here if it's less time use and less impact. But activities in these quadrants, in the upper quadrants, are not favorable, even if they are cycling activities. If they use less time and create more impacts, and if they use more time and of course more impact, even that is more favorable. So I would like to explore different kinds of upcycling activities and see what is their time use and impact profile for individual user. Um, so yeah, that's the work that I was doing, and this is a rationale behind that, how it will impact the overall resource consumption. I will not go more into detail of this. This work was published last year in Sustainability, in the special issue of Upcycling that was led by Kim Yun. So you are very welcome to read this article there. I think theoretically it's a very good advancement in the work of upcycling, especially in context with its sustainability impacts and potential and evaluation, how we can evaluate it. Another work that I would like to explore more into detail is looking into institutional constellations for a sustainable development of citizen-led upcycling. So I'm more going into citizen-led upcycling activities because it can have a huge potential if I look at from time use rebound perspective and income rebound effects. In terms of its potential to recover waste from the waste management. So yes, so that's all that I wanted to present in this presentation. Uh, uh, so you have seen this, this picture in my slide a few times. So, and in the previous presentation, also it was mentioned, and Usha also mentioned that how in India this kind of mats or are very common, were very common. So in India, I came from a very small village, and I remember as a child, I used to help my mother to make this. So of course, I was just rolling it into a kind of a thread. The and my mother was doing the weaving work. That was like more than 25 years ago now. But my mother still has these things. And I'm very attached to this. And I have asked my mother that you have to keep some for me because one day I'm going to bring it to Europe. Because this is a like highly, a skill in India that people have been doing for generations, and it is more or less losing its element. I don't know if the 21st century people are willing to learn these skills or keeping such products in their home. So very well identified in the last presentation that we need to make these upcycled products more sexy, and we need to revive upcycling as a skill in everyday life for all of the individuals. Right? Because once something becomes more streamlined, only in the handful of people, either they are upcycle designers or retailers, it has both negative and positive effects because a skill then can be lost in the society at large. So, but I'm happy that in this network we are sharing ideas to progress this research. And thank you so much. So this was all that I wanted to share for today. And this is my contact here. You're very welcome to discuss with me collaborating opportunities. Uh, my expertise is in analyzing sustainability impacts of whatever, including upcycling. So you're very welcome to reach out to me for ideas, for writing joint research applications, or writing journal articles and so on. Thank you very much.